Welcome to the Operation Game Night Podcast, episode 37. Today, we are joined by a very special guest, owner, proprietor, manager of our favorite friendly local game store, Cam from Petries Family Games. Cam, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
So good. We are so excited to have you on this podcast. I don't know if you have ever listened to a single episode, but you could probably select at random one of our past 36 episodes, and we probably mentioned Petries at least twice. More specifically, Clay, because he knows that half of his paycheck goes straight to Petries games. So,
say, I watched 2 of your episodes getting ready for this. So
Okay.
sorry, I didn't go through all 36.
That's okay.
I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
Yeah, and I do remember Petries being mentioned at least 3 times in the 2 that I watched. So,
Perfect.
yeah. So,
Yeah,
Cam,
we brag about Petries a lot.
Yeah, Cam, you're kind of like the great matchmaker of Operation Game Night. Like, if you think of Mulan, you create the mojo to bring us together.
wow.
I don't know. This is a surreal moment for me. I did not spend as much time in Petries as my 2 esteemed co-hosts here. But I'm very excited to see what kind of things we get into today while we deep dive Petries, one of our beloved mainstays of the podcast. So thanks for coming on, Cam.
Not a problem. I'm happy to do this.
Excellent. And joining me as always are my co-hosts Clayton Gable. Clay, how are you?
I'm doing good. I said beforehand, this is after hours Petries. I am in here. There are no customers. This is exclusive VIP treatment. Cam says that other people get it, but we won't focus on that. I'm
surprised you're not on the lease at this point because you're probably paying half of their mortgage. So get the keys to the kingdom.
Dang.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say the background. This is not the basement of Oak Valley Ranch, OVR. This is prime time behind you.
We're in it. We're here
Live
on location
in Petries.
Yeah,
a podcast about Petries being recorded in Petries.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Very meta.
Very exciting.
yes.
And listener, I don't know if you can tell, but Jared has his chain on and he smells like Bad Boy. So Jared, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you. I was unable to get a squirt of Bad Boy on me before the podcast. I probably smell like Kaneka sausage. I was just on my block. I was grilling up some breakfast. Well, we might be getting some game time, getting things to the table after the podcast. I got some buddies eating my buttermilk pancakes as we speak. That's why I'm trying to keep my volume low, or I'm going on mute as much as I can. So if I start talking and you're like, Jared, get off mute, because they're having a ruckus time. There's a couple kids in the other room next door, building up to a good game morning. Game morning.
Underrated.
So,
the game morning.
The game morning. Yes. So I will say I'm a little sad to see Clay without a tie today. Last week's podcast I was unable to attend, but Clay was dressed to impress last week.
We went formal last week.
I'm still on a high after seeing him in a tie.
I do have a collar.
Yeah, he does have a collar.
Maybe you should.
I was just going to say,
yeah, you think so?
I don't think I'm ever going to trade in the 5 milli, but we could start being like a formal. You could have like a formal day on
show up
OG.
like Step Brothers, where we're all wearing tuxes to record the podcast.
Yes, one day we just show up tuxes. But you guys didn't even talk about it on on Spotify. I didn't even hear anything about the tie. And then Adri's like, "Why is Clay in a tie?" And I'm like, "What?" And I look on the Instagram, and sure enough, there he is, just making me gush. So
I didn't think it needed explanation. That's just my prerogative to dress up some days.
We were all about business last week, but this week
I loved it.
We're all about a specific business, which is Petries Family Games. So, Cam,
I know he's a pro.
Our esteemed guest, we want to hear a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about Petries and tell us more specifically about what games you played this week.
Wow, that was like 3 leading questions in a row. So I grew up in the generation of hobby games being kind of maybe 20 to choose from. That was back when Games Workshop actually had board games. I know it's crazy to think about. And I think gosh, I know there's going to be people correcting me on this. Avalon Hill, TSR, and there's a couple others. There's one that comes West End Games. The original publishers of what you guys would know, like Arabian Nights.
Okay.
Yeah. So not a lot of their titles remain. But anyway, so yeah, there was like, 4 or 5 guys to choose from, of which they only had 4 or 5 titles. And there's this one title that GW used to do called Talisman, which is newly printed as of last Christmas. So Talisman 2nd edition hit the scene, and that was candy for my junior high brain to oh my goodness. And that just grew. The nice thing about Talisman, if anybody out there doesn't know anything about it, is it is like the epitome of sandbox. It has very little mechanic. It's roll a die move, but it's open move. Like you don't have to go in a single direction like you do in Monopoly or something like that. And then on top of it, you just collect things, and you collect swords, and you collect followers, and you collect horses, and they all do something to your character that makes you better so that you can eventually take on the bad guy at the end. And then expansions start coming out, and the next thing you know, it takes up an entire dining room table and possibly even some of the floor. And so a lot of my grade school, junior high, high school friends got back together again to start an annual Talisman Day. And
nice. I love
at
that.
this point, I'd started working with Talisman Island. Look him up. He's awesome. Out of Britain. And he was, what's great about him is that he lived not too far from the source. So anytime Games Workshop would have something drop, or he was there on hand. And so we all started the Talisman Island kind of fan conglomerate of creating expansions, and it became a big deal. They asked, one of my friends actually printed out everything that was viable and played through as a solo, and it took him close to a week to get through the game because there was so much material. So it just became like the thing sandbox wise. Fast forward, and that became kind of my group of generals that pushed me into starting a store. And they were the original like 15 of us that they were on my initial board of directors, advisory, the whole thing. And that's how Petries came to be, was through just an insistence on playing this one board game for 20, 30 years of our lives. So yeah, I mean, that also comes from being a local and never moving out of your hometown. So you're still in contact with your grade school friends.
What year was that? What year did you start Petries?
Petries was started in 2009 in another location. It's not the current location that's in now. And at the time, there weren't a lot of stores. I mean, the game store had that sort of reputation. The comic book guy from The Simpsons, that kind of person standing behind the counter. Usually it was a darker place. They were all dungeony. They didn't really take marketing or atmosphere into account. And, so that was our move, was that we wanted to try and become sort of the antithesis to that on the north side of Colorado Springs. And again, anybody who's watching that doesn't know Colorado Springs, the Springs is kind of cut up into sections, and the north, south, and then of course the west downtown area is sort of never really has anything to do with each other. And there was a really amazing store downtown at the time, and it would take us 30 minutes or more just to get down there. And while that's not horrible, when you think about a high schooler's gas budget, that just wasn't feasible. So it was always kind of the intention to try and give kids an opportunity to go someplace similar up here and on the north side. The irony is that since that time, most game stores have turned around. Like, the gaming cafe came along, that whole trend. And places like Wizards of the Coast or Ravensburger insist on stores having a certain level of professionalism if they're even going to get support for events. And so now we're kind of old hat. Like we're just doing things the way you're supposed to do it. Where at the time I thought we were really novel and original. So yeah. So I guess we won the war. I don't know. It's rare that you find the dungeony sort of feel game store anymore. If anything, it feels novel now, and you do find it.
Yeah, I feel like the game stores that are going for that specific vibe, like they are largely focused on D&D and tabletop gaming more than the board game community, right? Yeah.
Yep. Or Magic, your Magic centric stores. So
Cam, did you go to Rampart High School?
I
high school
did. How did you know that?
I mean, you're looking at three boys that the year that you joined or that you started Petries, we all entered the Air Force Academy together.
Oh, true.
And
Fair enough.
That's how we got together, and that's why this budding relationship. That's how OGN really came to be.
Fair enough.
But yes, little did we know, years later we would just be throwing cash at Cam. So
yeah, I mean, I back then, District 20 was just Air Academy, Rampart, and Liberty, or not Liberty. Yeah, Liberty. No, not Liberty. Liberty.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get some feedback for that. No, anyway,
that's real.
Don't worry, we have like 30 people that listen, and who knows? This could be the one that explodes. We're gonna send it to all of our influencers in Colorado Springs, which might be just Clay's brother. But we're gonna go big in Colorado Springs this episode.
Nice. That's right. That's awesome. But yeah, it's funny because we used to have this running gag about, it's like during prom, the number of cadets that would show up as dates. And so, we've had our eyes on you guys for some time.
Oh, geez.
Springs are always watching. Awesome.
Cadets are kind of the worst, though. I mean, sometimes. Yeah. If I was a Springs native, I wouldn't be a fan of them.
Oh, we are, though. We are. I mean, it's part of our culture,
Yeah.
So before we get too deep into Petries lore, why don't you debrief your week and tell me what games you played this week?
Oh, okay. So I've got to have my cheat sheet for that. I'm finding that the older I get and the more games I play, oh my goodness, you start having a catalog of like 1,000 games, and it's just like I start losing it really easy. So going back to last weekend, so Beyond the Horizon was kind of a rewrite of Beyond the Stars, and Beyond the Stars, I was okay with it. It's basically Tech Tree, the game is what a lot of people call it. So Beyond Horizon came along and said, okay, hold my beer, I can do it better. And it's the same thing. It's a Tech Tree. That's what the main large board there is. But you see the little hexes on the side is actually a civ builder. So they took it out of a science fiction, put it into a historical setting. And now the focus is all on that hex area where you're actually building settlements and fortifying them. And there's a lot of written theme, not shown theme. But yeah, as a whole, it's a stronger game. I hate to say it, but it's true. The other problem I had with Beyond the Stars was that it wasn't the most graphically intense game. It was pretty much, star fields with white writing on it. Where looking at this, it's a lot more color. Essentially, it's the same game. And I could actually see people making arguments to why you would want one or the other. But I wouldn't see having both. The sad thing is, when Beyond the Stars came out, I mean, it hit to the Geek Top 100 like instantly overnight. It was amazing. The response was huge. Then suddenly this thing comes out and it's barely a blip on the map, even though I think it's a better game, mainly because people see on the shelf and they're like, well, I don't need another Beyond the title. But yeah, just really solid. If you like civ builders, if you like tech trees. Now, one of the guys I was playing with yesterday, so shout out to Nathan for his observation on this. I'm totally stealing it. The mechanic of having a tech tree as a game is just that. It's mechanic. It's not the whole game.
Yeah.
And it's very similar to like comparing Dominion to any bag builder or say like Clank, because deck building as a whole has become part of a game. It's not the game. Yet when Dominion came out, that was a really truly original.
Yeah.
Beyond the Stars brought the idea or concept of a tech tree, yes, as a game. Beyond the Horizon says, no, that's just the mechanic. Here's the real game. And I really, really appreciate the refocusing on that.
Yeah, that's
That sounds
interesting.
awesome.
Yeah. Is this, would you say, harder than Beyond the Sun, or is it?
So I struggled getting into it. Unfortunately, it was one of those where it's like I just started catching on to the game like 2 turns before it ended.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot with Euros. But yeah, it is definitely one of those where the rules are simple. Like it's you can lay things out and say, okay, you have to do this, this, or this. There's a nice, really great index card that you get that shows you what to do.
Yeah.
All your options. The problem is I was befuddled beyond anything at first, where it's like, okay, I really need this, but I don't know how to get it. Well, you have to do this action. The next turn, you have to do another action. That the turn after that, you might get it. Okay. And then, of course, you lose your focus. And you're like, by the time turn 3 came around, you forgot that's why you were doing things. So that's the complexity, is the knowing what to do it's or another thing that was dropped when we were playing it. Somebody said, is it point salad? And it's like, no, it's more like a action salad.
Dang.
So, and which is true for the other game I'm going to talk about too. Both of them just felt like there was just a plethora of options, and you just choose one and see what happens.
Do you lean more towards heavier games, or are you?
Personally, because of my roots, I like sandbox. I like adventure games.
Okay.
But the problem with adventure games is, they take 10 minutes to explain, but 3 hours to play.
Yeah.
So they don't work well in the store, to be honest. So when you're playing in the store, you have to take on some more Euro style.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I was gonna say I'm a big Euro guy, so that just fired off in my brain. I was just like, oh my gosh, I want to get to the end of that track right now, and I want to know exactly what actions I need to take and what resources I need to give to do that.
Well,
so,
and then as soon as you figure that out, then the next game, all of the tech changes. And
it's like the map changes every time.
Yeah, exactly.
Tiles.
Can you go back to the picture of the board real quick?
Yeah.
Give me a sec. I'm waylaying the Stupor here.
Yeah, see,
Travis has to run the behind the scenes now.
Yeah,
all the pressure.
You can tell
it's the stress on his face.
See, Cam, this is the best part of being the guy that has no idea about anything. I just show up with my 5mm chain and I just talk.
That's amazing. I love it.
Yeah,
it's a lot of
a good
fun.
gig.
Yeah.
He's got a good thing going.
So if you look to the far right there, you'll see that there's only 3 spots, and those 3 spots, so that's your 4th. That's your tech level 4.
Yes.
The farthest to the left is your like ancient civilization. So that's things like inventing the wheel, where the stuff to the right is like astrophysics. And there's also leaders. So thematically, it's really amazing because each time you go to a new column, if you're the first one there, you get to draw a leader. It gives you a one-time bonus. So there were some guys that I drew. I'm just like, I have no idea who this guy is. So if you're a history nerd, it gives you, it gives you an excuse to go Googling. But yeah, that's so basically in order to get to column 2, I have to have unlocked something on column 1. And in order to get column 3, I have to have locked sometimes up to 2 or 3 things on column 2, and so on and so forth. So as long as you're meeting the prerequisites of your civilization, kind of, evolving, then you're allowed to move on to the next level. And that was actually the problem I struggled with. I kept looking out there and I'm seeing like 3 of my guys on the tech tree, and they had like 8 each. And I'm just like, okay, I'm behind on this. But I was investing on the field. I had a lot more troops early on than they did. So
awesome.
But yeah, if you like things like Through the Ages or either one of the Fantasy Flight Civ games, this has that same exact feel, but doing it through a worker placement Euro.
That's awesome. Do you want to talk to us about Stupor Mundi?
Stupor. Okay, yeah, Stupor. That is so far on my list of the best things I've played this year.
Whoa.
Now I got to play the Kickstarter version, so what you see here on the Geek is not the same exact. But yeah, give me a board shot here if you don't mind. Thematically, I didn't get the full story, but basically you've got the king, which is the hex board on the far end, the upper part of the picture there, and then you've got the four pseudo kingdoms, like your lords who are either supporting or not supporting the king. And so he's actually building a castle that comes through various types of you do things basically to give you the ability to affect that. And if I'm a supporter, then I'm going to help add pieces to his castle. If I'm not a supporter, then I'm taking pieces away from his castle. And where that comes into play is there's actual gosh, how do you explain that? There are actual one. Is there a rondel? I'm trying to see this picture. Sorry, I know I'm out of frame.
Were you about to say rondel? Because
the rondel.
Rondel fans here.
Okay, so the rondel actually is. I was wrong. I believe in that picture. The rondel is that hex thing on the far upper left.
What's that?
Yes, that's it. There you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, as you move your ship around, you're given options for picking up those people, which are the stained glass windows, the little point at the top. Those are the people,
cool.
the advisors. And if they've got a blue background, then they're just regular folks who don't really like the king. And if they've got a gold background, then they're like royals and lords that do support the king. And depending on who you take determines your in-game goals. So like a supporter is going to want the king to have a minimum of 6 pieces built on his castle, where a non-supporter wants there to be less than 6 of his castle. And so it creates this weird tug of war between the players where it's like, I need to add pieces. And next thing I know, Clay's coming along and taking those pieces back off. So it just creates some tension that I absolutely loved. The interaction between the 4 of us was great. Lots of trash talk, that kind of stuff.
Nice.
The cards you see, the squares, those just add to your hand. And essentially it's kind of deck builder-ish. You're creating a deck of actions, and those cards give you better actions. And sometimes they allow you to burn, old cards and make your deck better. Most of the times they don't. They just glut your hands. You have to be careful of that. If you look at the player board, that would be anything that is a color, basically, other than, I think, yellow. So that actually is more of a community board that gives you special actions. Not a lot to see there, to be honest. There we go.
How's that?
So you can kind of see there to the left where the cards are placed. So they slide under the board there. And you can choose to use the card for the action, which is the face up, all the color. Or you can choose to play face down. So you can slough a card you don't really want. And you'll notice that the halberds there are pointing their spears at the 2 different points of your board. And essentially that just symbolizes that those little points are symbols also of generic actions you can take.
Ooh, I like that.
And those, are anything from building your own castle to influencing the king to, there's a lot going on there. But again, it's very similar to the last one we were talking about. Very simple rule set as far as there's these 5 things that you need to know how to do, but good luck figuring out what order you want to do them in.
Yeah.
And, the more castle pieces you build, the more you think things you unlock on your board to be able to do.
So Cam, when you start this game, do you get to decide if you are for or against the king, or is it just like,
I mean, you
get
can,
dealt a card that
but
says,
no, you actually, well, like the person across the table from me was playing a mix. So, she had, I think, 1 or 2 supporters, but then majority of hers were non-supporters. So you just have to be careful of contradiction, because like if you have a guy that pays you points if you have X amount of castle pieces, and you got another guy that pays you points for not having X amount of castle pieces, then you're only going to get bonus points from one of those. So you just used up a spot. Now the good news is that if you use up a spot with a contradiction like that, any advisor you have in your kingdom still gives you 1 point. He's just not going to give you the bonus points.
Sure.
So you're not at a complete loss. So yeah, I mean, but it just became sort of that way. We just naturally divided. based upon the people that we ended up with. But at the beginning, yeah, I mean, you can go in kind of thinking that you're going to, but until you see who your in-game bonus points are, you're not going to really know for sure.
Yeah, that sounds
So-
amazing. I am into this. Just the iconography, interacting with the board, with the halberds pointing at the different symbols and like the 3D
great.
castles. I'm into this, man.
Yeah, it looks cool.
It was really an amazing presentation too. If you get the Kickstarter box, it actually looks like 2 giant volumes of like an old library book. And so when you slide on your shelf, it looks like you've got some classic medieval
I'm into it.
books sitting on the shelf.
That sounds awesome.
But yeah, it reminded me a lot of, and the title's going to escape me, but there was a game about 3 years ago that was a college centric one where you were at like 1600s or 1700s college, and you had to collect books. And I'm very vague here, but
I remember hearing about that one, but I
it was
cannot
like
remember the name.
Collegiate or something like that. It was another Latin title. And I loved it. I thought it was great. Never got it back on the table, but loved it. And as I'm playing this one, I'm like, oh, this is unlocking all the same things I loved about that one. Only I think it's doing it better.
Awesome.
So, yeah. Of course,
All
you get to build a castle. There's nothing better than that. So.
Oh yeah, I'm into it. Tell me real quick about Critter Kitchen.
Critter Kitchen. So apparently Clay's really into this game.
So listen, I'm actually really proud of myself because it was getting hyped up big time on Instagram and YouTube. You're seeing everybody posting about Critter Kitchen. And in the past, when I walked into Petries, I saw Critter Kitchen sitting there, and I was like, you know what? I am not going to be swayed by this wave of excitement around this game. I'm going to let it sit a little bit and see how it all shakes out after the excitement wears off. Although the presentation looks awesome, I was unsure if the gameplay was worth it.
If you like Flamecraft, you'll like Critter Kitchen. I'm not sure if you like Critter Kitchen, you'll like Flamecraft.
Okay.
I think Flamecraft is a great introduction game.
Yeah.
And it was really unique for its point in time when it came out, mainly for the artwork.
Yeah.
And the fact that you were doing a worker placement that, a 6 to 8 year old could actually wrap their brain around. And so Critter Kitchen is like the next step up, and I think it's a better game. However, it doesn't have the cute presentation of dragons serving you coffee. So, there's just a little bit lost on that. But the general idea, so why I'm a little down on Flamecraft was that essentially it's the same 5 things. It's like once you get your little engine built, it's the same engine you built probably the game previous.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like, okay, I played this 3-4 times, I'm kind of done. This one has a lot more variability, and yet still kind of doing the same concept. The thing I love about this one, and I'm sure there's other games out there with this mechanic, it can't be original, but it felt really nice, was that you have the 3 characters on the cover, and they're like fantasized. So it's not just a mouse, it's a flying mouse. It's not just a boar, it's a boar that has, I think, like extra horns. I don't know. So it's some sort of weird alternate, reality of animals. The boar is the largest one. He can carry as much as he wants, but he's slow. The mouse can only carry one thing, but he's fast. And then you've got, I think, a lizard. It's the middle character. So what that means is that everybody blindly chooses which location they're going to go to, and which one of their characters is going to that one. So everybody who chooses a location, the mice get to go first. So they get first pick, but they're only going to choose one thing, all the way up to the boars. And then any boars that are remaining get to basically take whatever's left. And so it's a really weird decision of like, okay, I really need that one ingredient, then I'm going to send the mouse there. But if like, man, there's a lot of great stuff at this location, I'm going to take my chance of getting as much of it as I can. And hey, if nobody else plays their characters on that location, then you got whatever you want. And then they balance that too with the last 2 spaces. One's, I think, like a underground black market, I think, and the other one is a pantry of all the stuff that was left over from the previous round. And so you still can potentially get most of what you want. And then behind the scenes, you take those ingredients and it's like a reality kitchen show, and you're putting together these dishes for the judge. And so there's different criteria that the judge wants to see, and she wants you to use more peppers and less whatever. Corn. I don't remember. So, and then you get points based upon those dishes each round. But every time you use up an ingredient, that's it. And you only have so much storage space from round to round in your refrigerator. So it just really fits the theme well. And cute animals. I mean, the artwork is just amazing. So overall, this is probably the best thing on the shelf for the family market if you're looking for something new and original. I say that though, there's a lot going on here, so it might be overwhelming to the younger kids. But for your 10 years up age set all the way up to adults, it's a really good overall worker placement that just feels new and fresh.
You recommend starting with this or starting with Flamecraft?
I would start with Flamecraft if you've got kids that are 6.
Yeah. Okay. Also, you just describing that mechanism. I like the speed versus amount that they can carry. I like that mechanic. That's pretty awesome.
It is. It really is.
It has to feel. I don't know who you played as when you played this game, but it can't feel great being the boar and like just getting stuck with leftovers all the time.
That happened a lot.
Yeah, cannot feel good.
It can't. It says so. There's a lot of like, you got to pull out your inner poker player a little bit. You're looking at everybody at the table and thinking, okay, they're going to want to go there. They're going to go there. I found that by the end of the game, I was doing a lot of, okay, that's an amazing place, which means that nobody's going to go there. So I'm going to go, everybody's going to go there. So I'm going to go to the second most amazing place. And then of course you get a little bit of a zany going in there where you're just like, okay, I know that that you're going to go there, but you know that I know that you know that, so you're going to go somewhere else. It gets really kind of intense on that whole trying to figure it out. So yeah, there was a lot of times when it's like everybody would send all the characters to like one location, and you're just like, yeah, what? Okay, my board's not taking anything home.
Yeah, that poor boar.
Poor boar.
Sounds like me. Always slow.
Jared character. Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. That sounds awesome. Thanks for sharing, because I've seen this a lot online and I am very curious about it, and I love the artwork and the theme and everything. But I just didn't know much about it besides this quasi relationship to Flamecraft. So that's a good explanation.
Sure. And there's a Kickstarter version out there. I think the Kickstarter just comes with more.
Comes with more.
It comes with more characters that you can use and that kind of stuff. But honestly, this is one of the few times when I'm saying, the Kickstarter was nice, but you can get away with just the basic game, no problem.
Yeah, I like that. Excellent.
Well, looks like I'm walking out of here with Clear Kitchen today. You still got some?
There actually have a lot on the shelf for this one. So.
Okay, well. All right.
All right, Clay. From New Games, tell me about your excursion into leader games this week.
Yeah, so I'm going to keep this short because I want to get into the Petries business. All right, I want to know everything, but it's just a little bit of a novelty that on Friday night I played Arcs, and then on Saturday night I got to play Ahoy with the New Horizons expansion, and just wanted to give my initial thoughts mainly on Ahoy because I hadn't played with the New Horizons expansion yet. But man, it was tough. I compared to Arcs, like no leader game is going to be easy on the rule set, but like I played Arcs. I mean, I probably played Ahoy and Arcs the same amount of times, but when I went to set up and teach Arcs, I haven't played it in months and months. I barely had to look at the rule book. I kind of remembered how everything worked. I taught it pretty easily to the new players that were there. And then Ahoy, I've played it the same amount of times. And maybe it's just the asymmetric characters, and then trying to learn the 4 new ones, like just the rules overhead was crazy. I watched videos, I read the rule books for all the different characters. And then still it was like I set the game up and I was like, this has a good chance of flopping because I just don't know that I understand it well enough. We got to a point with the base game of Ahoy where we understood pretty well the mollusk union and the bluefin squadron and the smugglers were the same. So it was really only 3 things you had to know. But jumping up from 3 to 7 different factions to learn and try and understand the rules for was a burden. And I wanted to play the new stuff, but it was probably a mistake. I probably should have just, maybe picked one of the new characters. We ended up playing with the new yellow faction, which is the Shellfire Rebellion, and they kind of like shoot their comrades across the map onto different islands for control. One guy played as the Leviathan, which I read the rule book, watched the video. I still don't even know what he was doing. He was you're trying to like extend your body as long as you can and just eat people off islands.
Wow.
And it looked cool. He was having a fun time with it. And then
Who did you play with?
I put Brady and Leah, the 2 of my friends from work.
Nice.
Yeah. And so I played as the Coral Cap Pirates, which was actually really fun. But again, every single person I was playing this with was in the rule book like the whole time, trying to, and that's just like how Leader Games is.
I was just saying that's just Leader.
I know. Everything's very specific, like language really matters in their games, like the difference between moving and placing and a figure and a token and like what initiates battle, like it's all very intricate, and it's just something you have to really live with and play a lot. If you want to play this game, I would not just get it off the shelf and be like, hey, teach it to a bunch of new people and expect to have a good time. They kind of have to be invested and like, hey, we're probably going to play this game the next 3 weekends, because it's really not worth it if you're not going to play it that much, because there's so much to it. And that's why Root is probably my favorite game. I haven't played it in like 2 years because it's just so much of an overhead to get people spun up in these games.
That's what I was about to say. I was going to say this is Root and Leader Games again, but like you guys love it. It's your number 1 favorite game. That's why I gave you guys Root themed Christmas gifts. It's like, once you're in it and you're vibing on it and everybody knows their crap, you show up to the table and you start battling and having a ton of fun. But it is tough. It's a toughie. It's a commitment. You got to commit.
But also like Root, that would be like what you try to do with Ahoy is the equivalent of like sitting down, cracking open a new expansion for Root with all new factions and saying like, let's just play with these. Nobody's played this yet. Nobody has understood what these guys do. Like learning that stuff on the fly takes so much work, and
it was work.
Props for trying.
Had your friends played the base version yet?
No. So it was 3 people, never played Ahoy before, and me, who's played like 5 or 6 times with the base factions. Yeah. And even those I kind of had to relearn a little bit, and then throwing in the new ones on top of it, it was ambitious. But till the end, I really appreciated my Coral Cap Pirates. I think that's a really fun faction to play. You're kind of like going to different suited islands and recruiting captains to like captain these little smaller ships, frigates, and then each of your frigates has a group of jobs you have to do. So you have to go to other islands to complete the jobs. And I thought that was a lot of fun. Once I read the rule book before. I read it for like the first half of the game, and then in the last half of the game, I was like, okay, I think I understand how this faction works. But yeah, Leader Games, I shouldn't like their games because every other game I like is like the opposite of this, like streamlined rules. I don't have to like anything. If I'm in the rule book in a game, it really pisses me off. And with Leader Games, I accept it because I just think they're so interesting and offbeat that it's worth it if you can keep playing it with the same group over and over again. Unfortunately, I haven't had that group, so they have not gotten that. But back to Arcs and the positive note, I have found that Arcs is a lot easier to introduce to people because it's not introducing, asymmetric player abilities like crazy. I mean, you can, but the base game of Arcs, everybody's basically doing the same thing. You only have to teach the same actions, copy, surpass, or pivot. And so like this is definitely the leader game that I will probably play the most just because I have the easiest time teaching it.
Yeah. Here's a little something. I think Cam is a great person to discuss this with. But in my head, here's what I'm thinking. Technology is going to keep progressing. And Cam, I don't think maybe we talked about it on the podcast that you listened to. I'm a big guy about AI and machine learning. Machine learning, you could upload the rule books and stuff, and maybe even all the stuff from BGG, and just have a computer next to you, even like a voice recognition thing. If you're playing a tough leader game, just be like, let's just do a quick like check the rule book, and you just click a button. Hey, can Coral Captain do this? And then whatever the freaking thing says, you just listen to it.
Yeah.
Because it's like an arbitrator, and then you just keep playing, because that's a good way to keep the action going, and you just have a good game night. Like, I feel like sometimes when you, like what Clay's describing, you have to get your nose in the rule book. Everyone kind of like their shoulders go down, they slouch a little bit. If you just have this like third party that just like arbitrates things, and you like, even if it's wrong, you say F it, but we just make the decision. I think that would be an awesome thing. I don't even know, is that a thing already?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I have so many opinions on this, I can't tell you. So, you know, there's some of the games, you know, have been translated to AI. I mean, like even Talisman's got an AI version now, or I should say app version. And so I played Terraforming Mars through the ages, you know, those kinds of things on apps, because it's hard to get 4 people together and know the rules well enough to be able to give you the experience you want. However, they're kind of soulless. So yeah, it's nice having this thing, you know, telling you, nope, you can't do that. And here are all your options, and a little highlighted list down the side. And you're like, oh, I like that one. But I get done playing, and in half the time, no less, which is great, but I kind of feel like I didn't really play the game. I didn't have to struggle with the puzzle solving because it just handed it to me. I didn't have the human interaction that comes with waiting for somebody to make that mistake, you know, or somebody to surprise you yourself for making a mistake or anything like that. I feel like there's an element of like you can do that, but then you lose something when you have it automated like that. I think the whole point of board gaming is to sit down and be able to really work with each other. The only time I found an exception to that was for a long time, and they might still be out there, but they were making the convention circuit, was these interactive game tables. Yeah. So very similar to Board Game Arena or something like that, but they had all that programmed into it. And in fact, we even supported a Kickstarter for a while that was trying to introduce that to game stores. Nothing ever came of it. But that felt like a great hybrid where it was like, yes, you didn't have to explain all those rules. All the options were kind of there, but you still had to have 4 people pushing the button to say that's what we're going to do and moving the pieces. And you actually had to move the pieces around. So it felt like there was still a lot of like, you could make those mistakes. You could allow for the human element in those games. Now, that being said, it's really great to be able to play through the ages in less than an hour before bed, and I've got no other gamers around, you know. So sure, why not? But definitely there's a difference between playing in person and not.
Yeah.
You know, but that's why I never really got into Board Game Arena, was because of just that. Like, the fact that I have to figure out the rules and push things around makes it like, well, if I'm going to do something interactive online, I want it to be fully interactive.
Yeah.
Yeah, Clay very much, he's said on the podcast multiple times, I just keep clicking things till it does it. Like on Board Game Arena.
Exactly. So yeah, you don't really learn the game, and it's just kind of frustrating.
But then Board Game Arena connects the 3 of us geographically separated love bugs together across, you know, electrons.
It serves its purpose. Definitely.
Yeah, we have
the necessary evil.
Yeah, it is a necessary evil.
I've got a couple of friends who just can't make store hours, and because of my weird schedules, you know, it's a great opportunity for us because a lot of us are night owls. So, you know, you're not going to say, hey, let's go meet up at the store at 10 o'clock at night. So yeah, it serves its purpose, and I really feel like the technology could get better, but at the risk of let's not steal the humanity out of it either. You know, because it's like video game poker. I don't get that. I don't understand that, because it's like the whole entire point of poker is to be sitting with a bunch of people and watching body language and trying to bluff each other. And if it's just a push a button draw, like, what is that? You know? So there is a point where you lose the entire purpose of playing with people when you have it too automated. So
That's a great take. We actually did an episode about digital adaptations for board games, and that's something that we had not considered, was like taking that decision space out of it and the ability of somebody to read the board landscape or the decisions that are available. Like looking at a board with pieces on it, it doesn't highlight which ones you can move to. It doesn't like, you don't know what all is available. If you overlook something, that's on you. That's like part of the game itself.
Right.
And we didn't, you know, if I'm playing chess and I click on a piece and it shows me where I can go and where I should not go, like with little red X's, right? Like it takes out the decision making that is chess and reading those board conditions. So that's a great take. I like that.
Well, and I even said during Beyond the Horizon when we were playing that, I'm like, man, this might actually be one of the few board games that would be a better video game, simply because there's so many choices. But I also disagree with myself on that, in that the part of the game is trying to figure out what all those choices were. Yeah. And the fact that I didn't see, you know, the way through the forest the way that they did was part of why I came in last. And not only did I came in last, I came in last by like, almost, I think the second place guy doubled my score. So it was, but that's, you know, that's part of it, is it's just trying to figure out those patterns. And yeah, if I've got a computer saying, oh, by the way, this is a better move for you. Okay.
So we will scale back the, you know, making it efficient. I just want to make an AI that helps us make sure we're not breaking rules.
Sure.
You know?
And it would be really great if we had some sort of like, you know, floating rule book over here that just said, you know, nope, that's not allowed.
Augmented reality.
Exactly.
Oh,
there you go.
Yes.
So,
okay. I'm into it.
All right.
I'm like I say, I'm kind of on the fence. I see benefits of all of it, and I see some detractors too. So
yeah, for sure. Well, Clay, thanks for briefing ARCs. I'm here to talk about Parks. Second edition.
nice.
I'm not going to talk about this too much. I really have not interacted with it all that much. I just want to shout out the freaking artwork on this thing is phenomenal. I really enjoyed the artwork on the first Parks. This has like the expanded edition of it. So it's got all these different national parks with these, like you could print these out into full-size posters and they would be worth hanging on your wall. They're freaking beautiful. There's like 100 and some different parks included, and all of them are great. And I love just flipping through these things. My edition actually came with a rare holographic one that is some collectible, and I wish I could shout out the actual park that it was, but it's a Hawaiian National Park. And yeah, this second edition is pretty cool because it has like their description is kind of weird. It says that they took like some of the best ideas from some of the expansions of the first edition. So they included like elements of the expansions into this new version. It's supposed to be streamlined, it's supposed to be way easier decision making. And I am really looking forward to getting this played more, but I'll save that for a later episode. I just want to shout out this artwork because if you go to the first edition of Parks, it's like it's just like dull, you know. It's beautiful artwork. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I thought the first edition artwork was amazing, but I'm saying I wouldn't have thought they could have done better.
Yeah,
and I
guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and somehow they did. Did they lose the rights to that artwork? Is what I heard. That was like a specific company that they had used. It was like a separate thing with the first edition. It was like 59 something.
Interesting.
And they lost.
I had
the
not
rights
heard
to
that.
art. I heard it somewhere, but you can't believe everything you hear on the internet. But
Clay's up on all the hot goss.
Yeah.
I am.
I do have to say that, you know, it came quickly. Like we still have original Parks on the shelf.
Yeah.
So it's a little weird. Usually there's like, you know, a year worth of gap where it's like the old version goes away and like this was just like overnight. Boom, we got a new edition coming. And I don't think I've ever in the history of the store had like the next edition and the previous edition on the shelf side by side.
That's crazy.
So it felt like it was kind of like there was a reason, like
Yeah.
almost like an emergency reason.
Yeah, they got this out super fast. And yeah, the artwork is beautiful. You open up the box, and in the second edition, you're greeted by this like big poster size artwork for Yosemite National Park, right in my backyard. Growing up in California, it's like an hour away from my hometown. I love, the image of Half Dome. It's like one of my favorite images in national park, photography. And then, they have these individual like tray organizers that are shaped like logs and everything. Beautiful components, beautiful artwork. I'm going to talk about this more later on, but I want to get to our discussion with Cam. So I'm going to hold off on talking about that too much more. Jared, you want to talk quickly about your game?
Oh yeah, went down to Tampa last week. Sorry, that's why I couldn't be in the podcast. I didn't think you could mix up Battleship much, but I played against an 8-year-old who almost kicked my ass. This is Battleship Outer Space.
What
Guys,
the heck?
Look at
3
that.
levels of space warriors. And I mean, Clay, he's all about the space war. We're talking lasers, okay?
Whoa.
So no longer are you pinpointing your depth charges and blowing up stuff. You're launching orthogonal lasers that blast across a whole row or column. So you call the row or the column and what level. And so you still get hits, but and you still have 5 different ships that you're going after. And so same, you tell them what row or column and what level, and you start blasting away. It is a lot of fun. And shout out to little Ezra, my best bud down there in Tampa. He not only is he good at Fortnite, he's pretty dang good at Battleship. He also beat me at Sorry. We played Sorry, and this was the card Sorry. We were pulling cards, and he sent me back home many times, and he beat me at Sorry as well. But I mean, it was a good one. Little Hasbro. I don't know if Hasbro has ever made the podcast, but Hasbro made the list. So
That's
Battleship
awesome.
Outer Space, guys.
Is it electronic or is it old school?
No, this one, no, it's no batteries needed.
Okay.
So,
It's an analog. Yeah.
analog.
Oh,
Awesome.
wow.
But yeah,
Well,
it was fun.
Speaking of rows and columns, let's fall in on the mission objective.
Fall in.
Heck yeah.
All in. All right. So mission objective is we want to talk to Cam about Petries Family Games and friendly local game store ownership and management in general. Hello to the patrons of Petries Family Games.
Yeah.
So
Somebody's doing a
I was
drive-by.
gonna say we get this all the time. So yeah, we're looking at the windows outside, and you get these people.
Are you
that just
open?
Like, are you open? Are you like But the fact that there's somebody in here and it's locked, it's just like this jealousy thing. Like like, why are they in there?
why can't I be in
Yeah.
there?
Feels good to be in
We
here.
can say,
That's
Clay,
right.
Yeah.
Clay, you're on the upper end.
We in the
here.
club.
That's right. Okay, so
Oh.
Cam, you talked about opening Petries in 2009
Mhm.
and how that kind of got started. You had some friends that encouraged you to do it. You had their kind of inputs into how Petries took shape. So tell me a little bit about like what you prioritized when you first opened. Was it like stocking the right games? Was it the right atmosphere?
Gotcha.
Was it customer interrelation experience? Like what was the focus when you started putting it into concrete
Right.
ideas?
I mean, I'd like to say that I went in with this like vision. I actually wrote up a vision plan. I found it just a year or two ago, and I'm like, wow, I had no idea what I was doing. So my buddy Brad had a bookstore for a long time, and he works for a book publisher, and he had this business book that he had given me that really helped tool that out. I couldn't tell you the title, and I'm going to goof up on some of the categories, but essentially the idea was that any business can do one thing amazing, 2 things well, and the others you just have to do. And the example you get, of course, the book is now like 20 years old, so the examples are not spot on anymore. But essentially it's the idea that like Walmart and Target are the same store. but you don't feel like you're in Target when you're in Walmart and vice versa. And it's because they focus on different things. And, Walmart's all about price, where Target's all about experience. So there's that influences your marketing, influences what you stock, it influences all of that. And again, when we went in, we were combating that atmosphere concept. So we were all about experience and accessibility, or we are now about experience and accessibility, where really I was just like, let's just have a clean place with, windows and lights. And that was kind of my focus.
That definitely helps.
So yeah, accessibility has really become our key focus, where it's like, we want to be, we want to be advisors for you. We want to be able to help you find what you need. We want to be able to say, hey, that game is a great game. Well, sure, it's in the top 100, but it's probably not for you, or something else where it's like, hey, this game is not in the top 100, but you really need to give it a look. That kind of accessibility, but also the community center concept of bringing people together. Remembering somebody's name and knowing that, hey, your personality type might actually be good with this personality type. Let's just sit you down at a table and introduce you to a game. That was quickly within the first 2 to 3 years how we started molding ourselves into being something unique. Was really truly, it's just get to know the people. I equate myself to it's the bartender concept, or I like to think of Happy Days and the malt shop. It's the mentor that's not really involved in your life concepts. It's the people. If I can quote Sesame Street, knowing the people in your neighborhood.
Yes.
You gotta come to this point of realizing that even though somebody doesn't know me from Adam outside of the store, I am still part of their everyday life, just by simply being, one of the pieces that makes up their culture, that makes up their given week.
Yeah, that's like a great just advocacy for board games are not about the actual game. Yeah, the mechanics are nice and they're great to interact with, but it's really about getting people together and enjoying people's company through a board game, right? That's like the medium that you're experiencing. Jared, you got something?
I was going to ask Cam a very tough question. What was your first impression of Clayton David Gable? And when did you first realize that he was a customer? And what is your impression? I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but when I think of Clay, I think of Petries. And
wow.
Really though, I mean,
be brutally honest, Cam. We want to hear your honest opinion.
We want to hear the hot goss. I already said it once today, but yeah.
I mean, not to make him uncomfortable and gush into this potentially unwanted bromance, but
oh wow, I can only hope for that.
The moment,
yeah.
Seriously, the moment he walked in the store, it was like that feeling of okay, this is a guy who gets it. So yeah, no, I actually do remember the first time it came in the store. And it wasn't hey, this is an easy target. It was more of a no, he fits the culture. He does, and you can see that this is somebody who's using games as a tool to bring people together. And I respected the fact that he was a father, and he kind of exudes the military thing. So I kind of assumed that right away. Of course, that we have a nice little cheat thing there where it's just if you kind of feel like they might be military, you just ask them, hey, are you military, for the military discount? And then you get your answer there. So there's a lot of ways and tools that we get to find out about somebody just simply by using sales tactics. But no, seriously, same thing could be said for Travis. It's the moment you walk in, it's hey, these guys are easy to smile. They're quick to carry on a conversation. You can tell that they're an asset to the community as well as to the hobby.
Well, just from my perspective, I remember I had never been to a store anywhere in my life, and somebody said, "Hey, Clay," and this was the first place I ever came into where I walked in and you said my name, you remembered me,
right?
And I was like, "Wow, okay, that's nice."
So it does help.
It's like Cheers, right? You walk in and everybody's like, hey, Clay.
Yeah. Norm. I have to say that there's a little bit of a cheat there. My father's two best friends have really unique names, and one of them is Clay. And so it's just like, boom, got that remembered. That's why for a long time Travis was just Smith to me, because I couldn't ever remember his first name.
Hey, you guy.
You got that big guy. Hey,
Where's
big
the
guy.
big guy?
Yep,
That's right.
exactly. So yeah, I mean, you use tricks, you know. Although people tell me all the time that I have this superpower when it comes to remembering names, and I don't know. It's just me. It's the way I've always been. I know names. I collect people in my head, you know.
Yeah.
So
is that something you impart on your staff here? Like
I try.
You really try and push them in that,
so
welcoming environment type behavior.
Having a team is somewhat new. I mean, really, because Bo was a volunteer before she worked for us, and everybody after that has been someone that I've somehow vetted and then just kind of offered the job to. And that's only been with the last 3-4 years. So there was an element of, well, and then Alec before Bo. Alec was the same way. I don't know if you guys ever met him. He was our original Magic guy, no longer with the team, but he's still around as a volunteer. Yeah, there's an element of taking a team and saying, hey, I want you to be exactly like me and become this clone, and this is the Petries way.
Yeah.
And then having them fail miserably. Or you take what's their ability, find out what their superpower is, and go from there. To sing his praises, Matt is currently one that works most evenings, and so you'll see him in the night. And he's an analytics guy. He loves to look at what are potential problems and find solutions. And I'm not, so for me, that's a hard thing for me to think about, but it's also a necessity as far as a business owner goes. So I just let him own that space. He also happens to be really friendly. So whether he remembers your name or not, I don't know that I care, because, that's not his focus. And honestly, he's a storyteller. He's a role-playing guy. So he's going to take you aside and he's going to start, sharing what your day looked like, more so than who you are as a person. So, everybody has all these various nuances that I try to bring that up as part of a overall pictures of what Petries would look like. But yeah, I mean, it'd be nice if I could say, hey, that name thing, do that. But I can't explain how that works, because I'm finding out more and more that that's unique to me. It's kind of a uncommon thing.
We're getting a leadership lesson and friendly local game store.
Right.
Yeah,
I
love it.
Cam, you obviously care about how your staff interacts with the community and vice versa. And a big part of what I find unique about Petries is just the sheer amount of community events that you guys put on. You guys are always having stuff going on in the back room. You're having tables set up where you're just teaching people games. You're having Magic tournaments. You're having, board game swap meets. You put on a lot of these events, far more than I've probably seen for most friendly local game stores. So how do you decide what events to do? How do you find that balance between what is too much, what you can manage, what events to put on?
Gotcha. So this might be one of those areas I told Clay earlier that he may have to hold me back if I start going on a negative rant. Got you. So yeah, hold me back.
Yeah.
I'm going to kind of roundabout answer your question. There's a current trend right now where TCGs, trading card games, have taken over, and they haven't just taken over because that's what everybody wants to do, so to speak, as so much as they've taken over because they're just kind of like the bully who's elbowed himself up front on the stage and is now just upstaging everybody. It feels wrong. At the same time, people are loving it and they make the store money. So from a business point of view, it's good. But it also means that we don't do a lot of what I really want to do. Every game now suddenly has this requirement to do a pre-release, to do a release, to do a store championship, to do a regional qualifier, to do a special holiday theme. And then you take that and you look at the fact that we've got Magic and Pokemon and Disney and Star Wars and HeroClix and all of those want that. We've got a Flesh and Blood pre-release coming up on the same weekend that I think that we have a Lorcana Store Championship coming up. And
Oh, geez.
there's only so much room in this space. People tease me all the time about like, well, we just knock out a wall. Well, yeah, okay. Well, you pay for the extra rent. It's just an element of like, you can only do so much. You can only do what you can do. And it feels like I'm canceling our regular events on the reg because one of these games comes along and says, oh no, you have to do this one tournament if you want to continue to receive prize support. And you have to do it on this one weekend. Well, okay, but I had a chess tournament scheduled for that weekend.
Yeah.
Well, it's like I'm constantly having to go out to people and saying, hey, would you mind moving your regular thing to another week? Because here comes Magic.
Wow.
And I don't expect that all these big companies are going to talk to each other, but there is an element of like, you don't release a Star Wars movie on the same weekend as a Star Trek movie. Like that'd just be dumb. Is if you're a good marketer, you know how to navigate your competition. And yet back in February, I think it was, we had 3 releases, 1 national championship, and something else. It was a big deal, and they all had to be done within 2 weeks.
Wow.
Like, how do you do that? I'm not going to have kids coming here at midnight. There's just not enough room in the schedule, and there's not enough room in the room. I comfortably sit about 52. I can go more. I just don't like to.
Yeah.
Because it gets loud and it gets sweaty and there's no space to get to the bathroom. And like, it's just like, why would I want to endure that? So,
well, let's talk about like the events that you actually do want to
so
host.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when we started, I wanted to have a lot more family centric type stuff.
Okay.
We used to have kids days. We used to have learn to plays. We used to have like one of the first things we've done, and it's a big tradition, and I will not let it die, is the couples dessert. So every February we have we highlight 2-player games. We redo the room completely so that it has a little bit more of an elegant set, black tablecloth, that whole thing. And at first we used to wear tuxedos or really really fancy dress. Over the years, the volunteers and myself have gotten to where it's pretty much just a white shirt and tie. Yeah. But yeah, I mean that's one of our big events. My wife serves cheesecake. We've even had like a wine demonstration before. We've done chocolate fountains. The whole works.
String quartet.
We've talked about it. We actually had a violinist lined up one year, and then they had to fail. The downside is that we always choose a weekend that, for some reason, turns out to be the biggest blizzard of the year.
Oh, no.
It's kind of traditional, and so yeah, usually like the special guest that we get in is always the person that has to cancel. But yeah, like we've been working with the local meadery to see if maybe they can come in and do a little demonstration, whatever we can do that's like couple centric. And so the downside is that it is a non-kid event. Like we just can't have kids at all during that one. But that just kind of gives you an idea of how we're trying to find unique approaches to gaming as a couple. Or once a month we have the singles meetup, which is not, the group itself was not organized by us, but we host that mainly because it fits our vision really well. And so we have people who are single coming in to meet other people over board games, and goodness, we can get up to 50 people for that event easily.
Wow.
So, and then our kids days, we used to do kids days that were themed. So it'd be like the Star Wars day. And we get, the 501 in, and they would patrol outside the store, and then we'd teach the role-playing game and some of the miniature games. And one of our volunteers has a actual training class that he'll do where he has foam lightsabers and walks people through, basic sword moves and that kind of stuff. And so it was just, that kind of event has gone away a little bit since COVID, because it's harder to find groups that are willing to just come in and do things like the 501st. it's harder to find people who are willing to go in mass and bring your kids. It's starting to change. It's coming back, but after 2020, we had to kind of rebuild that. But then you throw into the fact that we've got to have like 3 Magic tournaments on the in a weekend.
Yeah.
It's hard to clear out the room to have a bunch of kids running around with lightsaber foam sticks, So
that's so interesting. You bring up that like push and pull between Magic and trading card games, because you walk into some game stores and you can tell the ones that are losing that battle. Not that Magic isn't important, and I know that it makes a lot of money for stores, but like the ones that are losing that battle, and you can see like how that their cases or their displays or their racks are now just filled to the brink with Magic and Lorcana and Star Wars, and like those ones that you can tell that they used to have games there, but now it's like encroaching more and more and more as the years go on.
Yep.
Because those margins are so slim. Like how, and clearly you have a pretty big selection of board games. You have like your corner for D&D type stuff and Magic, and then like all that's kind of segmented off versus the side of the store that's all board games. Like how do you keep that balance?
Carefully. Seriously. So our showroom is divided into quarters, and so like you said, that's like what the lower corner is primarily role playing. And we didn't used to do miniatures as much. Like our idea of miniatures was more X-Wing Fighter and HeroClix, the pre-painted, open it up and go kind of games. But over time, we found that we needed to have paint. And in order to get paint, you have to get the contract with GW. In order to get the contract with GW, you have to carry their games. And so there was an element of like, okay, we've slowly let that section of role-playing kind of become both role-playing and miniatures. Because what else are we going to do? And then, of course, the lower right hand and the back wall is your trading card game. The front of the store is divided between really kind of puzzles and toys and games, but those can mix, and it's not that big of a deal. In fact, we found that it's better because we used to have the toys so completely removed that it was hard for mom and dad to shop because Junior was over there, and so it's if we can put the kids aisle next to the main board game aisle, well, now they can watch Junior while they're shopping, and it's not that big of a deal.
That's really smart.
So lessons learned over time. But and the stock is insane. Somewhere before COVID, there was an article I read that said something around 3,000 some odd games were released every month, not counting expansions.
Wow.
And it's just the ballooned. The volume is so insane. We used to watch like the best of the year videos, various podcasters, and Board Game Geek puts out theirs, and of course Dice Tower and that kind of stuff. And you could pretty much see the same games. It was like, okay, this guy had these 20 games, this guy had 18 of those 20 and 2 others. And it was very much a fluid thing. And as the years went by, you started seeing statements like, well, these are the top 20 of what I could get to. And eventually you started seeing the lists were completely different because that just happened to be the games they saw and were able to purchase. So it wasn't, basically we've gotten so watered out that it's like the mid-range games aren't getting played, or they're getting overlooked, and no one even got to see them. And so I know I'm totally rabbit trailing on you here, but there's an element of like, what do you put in that room to put focus on things is so hard to know. Honestly, it sometimes comes down to squeaky wheel. So the big bad companies that come along and say, hey, you have to get this title in, it's just easy to say, sure, why not? But every so often I try and find time to go out and find those independents and the small ones that haven't really said much. One of our biggest sellers is Obsession, and Cayente is not exactly, I think that's how you pronounce them. They don't really market themselves. You have to go out and find them. And they don't sell to distributors, they sell direct. And I really love the guys that work at that company. They are easy to work with. They have fair prices. I love getting Obsession in, mainly because of the theme, but also because it just sells so well. And it is the epitome of a mom and pa success story. And I love supporting that. So Yeah, I
But-
mean, it is hard. It is really hard to know what to stock, because if you stocked everything available, it would be a warehouse, and even then you wouldn't be able to find anything.
Yeah. And to your credit, I think that you do a phenomenal job of keeping up with most of those trends where, a game is launching on Kickstarter or whatever, or is hitting backers from Kickstarter, and it's right there in Petries. Like, I don't know if Clay, over the last, 37 episodes, 36 episodes that we've done this, has like, and he's been keeping up on most of the hotness. Like, he doesn't play them all, obviously. There's too many games, but like, he's playing current games. It's not like he's picking up games from 3-4 years ago all the time.
Sure.
He's like able to keep up with trends and what's hot. And like, you walk into Petries and the games that they might not be like hitting shelves like that week or whatever, but they're like in the hotness. They're being talked about. Like, you have those on the shelves as well as old classics. And I particularly like that you have the hotness, the new stuff, the stuff that's coming out this year. And then right on the other side, you have the used section that people can like trade in games. And so I find that most local game stores don't do that exchange, that used game type section. Like, what was the driving decision to do the used game section?
Used is really just to have something unique. Again, when we started, there was only 3 primarily board game stores in town. Now there's something like 15. I think, seriously, I'm not making that number up. Colorado Springs has always had more game stores than any other of the major cities in Colorado, and I don't know why that is, but it is. It's true. And
Jared called it the Mecca the other week, so he might be right. He might be
It's
right.
Could be all the nerds at the Air Force Academy.
Yeah,
Sure, let's go with that. Yeah, is gaming becoming more centric to military? I don't know, and that might be part of it. It also could be a lot of the tech companies too. But
Sure.
yeah, as a whole, we wanted something unique. But I also realized that there were some games on my own personal shelf. It's like, I haven't touched that in years. And unfortunately, I really think that it's kind of a sad thing, but it's a truth, is that games get outdated. Like we were talking about earlier with, Dominion and Clank. I know people will argue with me on this, but I see Clank as a far superior deck building game. The idea of sitting down just doing a standard deck builder anymore just feels old to me. And yet there was a day when I was like, hey, if it's a deck builder, I'll buy it. I want to see all of them. Now I kind of like the new Star Wars deck builder. I'm still a big Star Realms fan, but essentially they're the same game. And there's not a lot of variation there. So do you really need all of those on your shelf?
Yes.
So I came to a point where it's like, okay, I play DC deck builder, I play Star Realms, I play Star Wars. I don't need Dominion anymore.
Yeah.
So that, why don't I bring that in and get something else? And that was the idea, was that there's a lot of games not getting played. And I was watching our Goodwill and Arc, because we live next to both of those, and you'd start seeing designer games showing up there. It's like, it's a $60 game and they're selling it for $5. Good on you for finding that. At the same time, that would have been a lot better for the original owner to just bring in and find something else that's also a designer game and getting a lot of bang for the buck on top of it. So it allows you to discover something, as well as clean house a little bit too.
Yeah.
But I me's what's behind us is the library. So it serves the same purpose, but without spending any money, is to come in and try games as it's a preview. Is this something I actually do want to spend money on?
Yeah. And as somebody who has taken part in both the library and the used game trade-in, credit, that type of stuff, I appreciate all of that, because most game stores don't do that. And I think it is definitely something that sets you apart and makes you unique. So Clay, you want to say something?
Yeah. I mean, that honestly, like when I was going to different game stores in town, those two things are what kept me coming back to Petries initially, was the used game section. Like, hey, I can get this cool game I've heard about for a little bit of a discount. Someone used it. That's great. And then the library, where I could try out a game. And, when I initially was getting into the hobby, I wasn't sure really what I liked. So I wanted to try everything.
Right.
And so having that option to, come in here and, you keep it up to date with even newer games. Like I see SETIs on the shelf.
Yeah.
Like you can play a lot of different games from this library, and that was like a big draw for me when I was initially starting out.
And I try to stay as current as I can, but of course, again, you know, I think the number has definitely fallen from 3,000, but still, there's so many new games every month that I would go out of business trying to keep the library stocked with the latest, greatest. But yeah, what's the new Great Western Trail? Was it Rio Grande?
El Paso.
El Paso.
Yeah. We've got that one. I just haven't processed it yet, so that's coming out.
Nice.
SETI is recently added. So it's not every game, but it's the big ones that people are talking about as much as possible. Most likely we'll end up getting a demo version of Critter Kitchen as well. So there's a lot of things that just also you kind of take what comes to you, because sometimes people just send you promotionals, or there's a company that'll be like, you know, stock X amount, you'll get the library copy for free. So it's not unheard of, because even the distributors understand that people are doing that. They offer demo copies pretty regularly. So other stores are doing something like that. Maybe not in Colorado Springs, but at least nationally. It's become kind of a standard that you have some form of a demo library.
Yeah.
We just like to have it more interactive so that people can come in and actually play, not just stand at a demo table in the store.
Awesome.
Yeah, I imagine, I mean, I know for a fact, I don't know what the margins are for reselling used games, but to me, it seems like that would potentially be something that is a big burden, because you guys have to count all the pieces and everything and do all that and take in games and give credit. Like, is that something you've ever considered getting rid of, or
There's
because
definitely,
there's a lot to it?
yeah, the margin argument is valid, and it gets brought up several times a year, every year, mainly because of the piece counts.
Yeah.
Now, if we could say buyer beware, just slap a sticker on there and say, you know, go play it. Sure. But, you know, you get in a war game, for example, and it's like, you know, 700 little tiny chits with, you know, Avalon Hill artwork on it. Sometimes you just kind of throw up your hands and say, hey, we counted 800 chits. I don't know which one's missing. You're supposed to have 805. Go for it. But, you know, something like Lost Cities, there's your 80 cards. We're done. Got a board. Yep. Okay. So, yeah, do I really want to pay somebody $15, $20 an hour to come in and count pieces? No, that would take away your margins so fast. But at the same time, that's why we have volunteers. There's also certain games that you just kind of get in the habit of.
Yeah.
Like, I can count a Pandemic like nobody's. Yeah, like that's an easy one. I've just gotten used to certain ones I've counted so much. Now, this is, you know, inside knowledge here that you and all 30 people watching are going to know the secret now. If it's a party game, we tend to not count it. Like,
Yeah.
do you know if you're missing a card from Trivial Pursuit? I doubt it.
Yeah.
There's just a certain element of like, sometimes you judge the game by saying, this is not worth it. It's still the same play experience, regardless if it's missing a piece or not.
Yeah.
You look for the movers and say, okay, are all 6 movers there? Yes. Okay, great. There you go. So it does kind of depend on what it is. But yeah, I mean, yeah, if you take into account the time it takes to count a game, shrink wrap it, the cost of the shrink wrap, the cost of the labels to put on it, because, you know, we have a little legal disclaimer on each one just saying we do our best. We're human too.
Yeah.
By the end of it all, it probably doesn't have any different margin than a new game off the shelf, really. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it's something we have to constantly judge. But at the same time, I also say you can't put money on marketing. It's hard to say where somebody heard about a store and what brought them in. And if you buying a used game was a positive experience and that causes you to come back, that into itself is a priceless
Taking care of your customers,
marketing.
right
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
Yeah. So
Clay, you got any leftover credit before you pop smoke and get out of town?
Yeah, I think I have like
These days are
$15
numbered
left
in Colorado
Yeah.
Springs.
I know.
He had the audacity to ask me when I brought in a ton of games. He's like, "Well, but you probably don't want credit. You know, you're trying to get rid of all these games.
Wow.
You probably just want cash. I was like, oh no, I want the credit. I want store credit. And I've burnt through it.
He has burned through it.
And he's got Christmas money, you know. He's
That's
got
right.
Christmas
Birthday money,
so.
Christmas money, Petries credit. That's amazing.
Keeps the world going.
Well, I'm imagining, you know, it's like you got to move, you got to pack all this stuff up. You don't want to pack it all up, do you? And then, you know, apparently he does. So
He is shipping his boys and dogs separate just so he can pack more games into the minivan.
Yeah.
So
Right.
give that man every cent of credit he can.
that's awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been an awesome discussion about Petries. I don't want to run on too long. We could sit here and talk to you all day long.
Yeah.
But you got 4 years till your 20th anniversary. Where do you see Petries going in the next 4 years?
Ooh, well, that kind of depends on the current state of the economy.
Oh.
But I mean, ultimately, if I had my druthers, you know, and the perfect space opened up, you know, it would be nice to see us grow space wise. If the TCG market continues the way it is, we've got to find a solution to be able to get back to having some of the family events and having the casual events.
Yeah.
There's a growing trend towards speed puzzle tournaments, and jigsaw puzzle people are kind of raising their hand and saying, you know, hey, it's our turn. And I want to give, you know, that kind of group their due diligence. I think they're good for our culture, and it's just another subculture of the hobby that, you know, deserves a space at the table just like anybody else.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would love to be able to have more play space. I would love to be able to get our aisles to a point where 2 people can walk down the aisle without having to say, excuse me.
Isn't there a supermarket in that same parking lot that's been
There is,
for a
but it
while? You could
just
move right over there. Right?
we actually talked about it. In fact, we even talked about doing a conglomerate with the comic book store when he was still here. He was just like, why couldn't we just make a total geekdom?
That would be cool.
It would also be an astounding amount of maintenance, and
Yeah.
I would have to have at least 6 people on the floor at all times.
Yeah.
And you're talking about like tripling your output. It also means that you're quadrupling your costs.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I need to take baby steps. Like we need to go from a 3,000 to a 5,000 or something like that. Now that being said, the space just got bought out by Vasa, so we're gonna have people here at all times of the day working out suddenly. So hopefully that brings the traffic we need. I don't know if people working out are really going to take time to go shopping before or after, but
I would.
okay. So there you go.
You got a bunch of, you know, healthy nerds here. You know, we
Sure.
like to get a workout in. When Clay designs his board game weekends, he actually layers in workouts and food as well.
He's not kidding.
I'm not kidding.
Awesome.
The Google sheet that he sends out, it's got workouts. So
nice. I love it. It's amazing. But yeah, I mean, that's the biggest part. I think the downside of running a business is that you have to love running a business. And that I say that kind of jokingly, like I can't come out here and play games all the time. And I actually do enjoy running a business, but that means I have to be in an office, not getting interrupted, crunching numbers, trying to write, you know, press releases and whatnot, and staying on top of all of these events. I half the time don't even get them up on the store calendar before they're gone. And that keeping up with that is also means I'm not on the floor anymore. I'm not meeting people anymore. I'm not doing the other part of Petries. So yeah, I would love to get to a point where we also, you know, maybe double our staff just for the sake of giving me the ability to come out and rub elbows a little bit more, work the floor a little bit more, remember what it's like to actually sell board games, not just, you know, have numbers on paper. So there's a lot of growth there. But it all comes down to, it's got to be the perfect space. It's got to be the perfect time. It's got to be the perfect economic risk. It has to be in place too. So yeah, I can't think of anything else because the industry itself is growing so rapidly that honestly, I think that's what game stores are going to have to do, is just to grow more and more and more. The last little thing is I would love to be able to throw some sort of a cafe or a food industry of some sort on. But again, in this space, that doesn't really work. So
Partner with noodles and donuts across the.
I was just gonna say, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, our best neighbors do donuts and noodles in the coffee shop. And I say the coffee shop because I can't remember what their new name is. It's like the fourth name since I've been here. Between the two of them, if there was a way to put them into some sort of like end cap, on either side of us, that would be perfect. With like an interior door that leads to both of them. But we'll see where that goes.
Awesome. Big things to come. You heard it here first. Petries is going to buy the Chapel Hills Mall.
Oh my gosh. JCPenney's now.
That's right.
Boom. Petries.
And just to clarify, sorry, we're wrapping up, but this isn't your full-time job.
Well, it is a full-time job.
But you have another job.
I do have another job.
Wow.
What?
Yeah, I just found this out when we were coordinating to do this podcast, and you're talking about another job. I was like,
I got work.
What else does he do?
Yep.
No, Petries is the job.
Yep. So I have a day job that actually pays the bills, and this it's the hard cold fact is running a business is sacrifice. You have to love running a business, and I take care of my employees first, and I take care of the bills second, and if there's anything left in the pot, that kind of goes to us. But yeah, that's not very often. It's not something you make a living off of. That's for sure.
So don't get into this to get rich, huh?
You guess exactly. Every time someone comes, they're like, "I've always wanted to run, have a game store." I'm like, "Do you want to run a game store, or do you want to play games at a store?" Because you have to love running a business. You have to love spreadsheets. You have to love projections. You have to love marketing. You have to love all those other things. You have to love mopping a floor. And I can actually say that I do. And if you don't love those things, you're not running a business. Therefore, it's not going to succeed.
Awesome.
Well, Cam, do you want a third full-time job of being the Operation Game Night podcast director?
There you go.
We could use some guidance.
I don't mind being.
We need help here. We need help.
You guys are doing great. I loved what I've seen so far. So, no, I wouldn't mind being your occasional inside business specialist.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah. So
you are always welcome on.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
We are currently running a deficit, so we'll add you to the books.
Yep. Yeah, that's right.
We didn't do this get rich either.
I'm sure.
And in fact, we are not. Awesome. Cam, this has been an awesome discussion. Where can people go to find out more about Petries?
PetriesGames.com. Although I say that trepidatiously because it's been down for almost a month now.
I was just on it today. So
okay. Well, hey, it's been up. Great. Awesome. That's a relief. So yes, PetriesGames.com. Or if you have any questions, the best way, honestly, is to email us at PetriesFG. That's F as in family, G as in games @gmail.com.
Excellent. One more
and
shout out.
That is on the website. It's at the bottom of the website. His email is at the bottom of the website. It is live. We'll put it in the show notes. We'll put it in the show notes.
That's right.
Yep.
It's got all the upcoming events. It's good to go.
Oh, and also thank you for pronouncing it correctly. I didn't have to correct you on anything. So
the Petries.
Yep. We are not a petri dish. Exactly.
Nice.
Well, thank you so much for. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Travis. I need to interrupt you a couple more times and touch my mic. What is Petries?
It's a game store.
If you go to the about section on Petries.com,
it is on the.
It'll tell you.
So we are named after Robert Petrie, the Dick Van Dyke Show character.
Oh,
so
we should have started from there. Did you say that?
Well, no, but because you asked about me, and so I didn't know where to go with the family history, and then we went into what games we played. And
I'm the dummy on the show. We've started and ended. Sorry, Travis. I turn it back to you.
Okay. Well,
hey, all valid questions.
Cam, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. We cannot wait to have you back on the show if you ever agree to put up with our nonsense again.
Of course. Absolutely.
For Operation Game Night, I have been Travis. He has been Clay. He has been Jared. And he has been the one and only Cam of Petries Family Games. And we are out.